Don't look now, but it is officially baseball season. The long months without action on the diamond, the long months of agonizing over the underwhelming exit from the playoffs for the Philadelphia Phillies can officially be put in the rear view as the team has begun to report down to spring training, and we have a little bit of news regarding it becoming official that Zack Wheeler will be the opening day starter. I want to talk about what this means exactly, why this isn't the largest surprise in the world. He obviously was the guy that started opening day last year to snap a several-year streak from Aaron Nola, but point out how the Phillies have doubled down on this pitching first approach, how they are leaning into this as an identity, zagging from the initial zig of hitting first being the priority in building this overall roster, and why I do think that is the right direction here. And as well as Dave Dombrowski and Rob Thomson speaking highly about the results early on down in spring training camp. So to dive into everything exactly here, do want to start off with the news that Zack Wheeler will start opening day for the Philadelphia Phillies here. Again, not a big surprise. We know who Zack Wheeler is as a pitcher, coming off a dominant season, one that had a strong case for winning Cy Young, but did come up just short there, and could be the season in which he changes that. It will be a crime if Zack Wheeler goes through the entirety of his major league career without being crowned as a Cy Young winner, as he is the best pitcher in baseball. I think you can make that case for several different seasons now. Overall, last year, he pitched 200 innings on the dot, allowed just 20 home runs, had 224 strikeouts across that period, 139 hits allowed, still 34 years old, but showing no signs of decline, which is incredibly encouraged there. And looking ahead at this matchup, we're not going to get too far ahead of ourselves, as there is still plenty of time until this goes down, but it could be a pretty favorable matchup for this Phillies team. And why do we say that exactly? Is we have this tweet from our very own Luke Arcaney saying, assuming Mackenzie Gore starts for the Nationals on opening day, it'll be a favorable matchup for the Phillies on March 27th. Bohm is hitting 294, 5 for 17 with a home run. Castellanos 350, going 7 of 20 with 2 home runs. Harper 261, going 6 of 23. Turner 353, going 6 of 17. And JT Realmuto 250, 5 of 20, all against Mackenzie Gore there. So some pretty encouraging stats there, but obviously a long ways to go, a long ways away until we get to that point. Now, to reflect on the opening day starter, I understand there's a little bit more symbolism than actual impact as far as what this means for an organization. Unfortunately, while opening day will come with all the bells and the whistles and the spectacle that it deservingly is, it counts as one game at the end of the day in the books, as do all the others. But to acknowledge the opening day starters that have been on a year-by-year basis, kind of cool to reflect back on the pathway of how this all has gone down here. So Zack Wheeler, this will be his second season starting as the opening day pitcher. Aaron Nola was the guy that held down that role from 2018 to 2023. A homegrown guy that I'm happy is sticking around. And while Zack Wheeler is the ace on this Phillies team, there is no doubt about it there. Aaron Nola is a pretty damn good number 2, and one that teams all around the league would be absolutely jumping on. Maybe every other team but the Dodgers would be really in on that being their number 2 there. And then to continue on a little bit before that, we had that brief down stretch where Jeremy Hellickson was the guy, but before that was where the real legacy of pitchers on this Phillies team was. Cole Hamels, Cliff Lee, Cole Hamels, Roy Halladay, even Brett Myers we can throw in that mix there, and that is what I think the Phillies are attempting to return to. When you look around the league, seeing the money that is being spent on some of these big-name players in the outfield, the Juan Sotos of the world, all these positional players, there comes a point where the Phillies just, number one, aren't going to be able to bid at the same level as teams like the Dodgers and like the Mets. And number two, they don't really have a place for them either. That, yes, you can potentially upgrade, but the bottom line is they're pretty landlocked on what the core of their roster is, especially with this particular season being, I don't want to say a gap year, but certainly a bit of a step back from a financial or spending standpoint to ultimately leap forward next year and sort of retool into what exactly this team is designed to look like. So with that being said here, I do think the tactic from the Phillies overall was to attack the pitching staff here. Now, we know about Jesus Luzardo, who some positive reports coming out of spring training already. He's bouncing, or the Phillies are hoping he has a bounce back year this season. Kind of struggled last year, which is 12 games, 66.2 innings pitched, allowed 9 home runs and 58 strikeouts. The 5.0 ERA and 1.245 whip is not at all what you want to see. But we've also seen when he has been at his best, he teases that he could have legitimate number 1 ace stuff. Now, granted, what do I think the real Luzardo is? Do I think it was what we saw last year, or was it the top-end ace guy? I think it's probably somewhere in the middle of there. I'm not as high on him as I would say Luke Arcaney is on this channel, or plenty of other people that I've heard speak about him. but I certainly will approach this season with an open mind and would love to be wrong. I would love to say this is the best pitcher that I've ever seen before by the end of the year if he can deliver at that level. But I'm not going to set the bar too high just yet. I did want to note a couple other things. When I'm speaking about this, like being outbid and, not having the monetary funds to go up with some of these other opponents, to just take a note, we talked plenty about the concept of trading Alec Bohm throughout this entire offseason. Obviously, they are walking it back with him continuing to play at third base. And I think a driving force for why exactly that is we did get this report. Shout out to Chandler Rome last night of The Athletic, who tweets, Alex Bregman's contract with the Red Sox is for 3 years and $120 million, sources tell The Athletic. Opt-outs after each season. $40 million a year for Alex Bregman. Now, do I like Alex Bregman? I do. I think he's a winning player. I think he's a guy who can absolutely contribute to a World Series champion still. He's not what he once was, but a guy that I would have viewed, probably squint my eyes and see as an upgrade to Alec Bohm, even at this advanced stage of his career. Do I think he's a $40 million a year upgrade? And I get Bohm obviously making some money too, but a guy that a significant reach, I guess the level up in money is more significant the level up in impact, and that is where I understand why the Phillies decided what they did decide there, and particularly with all the trade rumors, with all those swirling, the bottom line is you got to find a way to recoup this relationship with Alec Bohm, and do believe that he will get back on track this season. There is still a world where that first half of the season, what we saw from him, is close to the true version of him as a player. It's really disappointing how steep that second half fall off was and the version of him that really concluded that year. But the reality is if you can get something in the middle of that, this dude was leading the league in doubles, leading the league in RBIs for stretches last year. And that is the player that you got to find a way to find once again. Now, when speaking about the Phillies as a whole, there is another underwhelming player who's getting a lot of love down there in training camp, that being Taijuan Walker here. Now, I'm not going to, sell you the vision of Taijuan Walker returning to the player they expected they were signing, but I do love to hear this. And an interesting quote that I did thought was brought up, this coming from NBC's Corey Seidman here. He writes, Walker threw a bullpen session Wednesday morning to Realmuto, Thomson, pitching coach Caleb Cotham, and the Phillies front office watched it closely. Walker is a notable figure in the camp because he's owed $36 million over the next 2 years, but no longer has a spot in the rotation and is fighting just to make the club as a long reliever. Walker has been throwing at a maximum effort since mid-December and described his bullpen sessions throughout the winter as intense. His fastball is sitting 90 to 92 compared to the mid to high 80s around this time last year. Quote, his velocity was very solid today, much better than it was at the beginning of last spring training by a great deal, Dombrowski said. His overall movements on the mound, command of the fastball, I thought he looked so much smoother than he did last year, so much more athletic, and he's been a good athlete throughout his career. For whatever reason, it got away from him last year. I hope that he pitches like Taijuan Walker that we've seen in the past. Then we'll have the great problems and great conversations and see what happens. You can never have too much pitching. Somehow we'll figure it out. But good first day of spring training. And again, we're not going to put the cart before the horse and believe that there is this full comeback story for Taijuan Walker. To reflect on what he produced last year, the 32-year-old pitched in 19 games, 83.2 innings pitched, a 7.10 ERA, and a 1.721 WHIP. Not what you want to see there. Had 58 strikeouts across these at-bats, but did allow 24 home runs. And the thing that I will say to stick up for Taijuan Walker, I do still respect the way that he goes around his business, wears his heart on his sleeve, and takes things head on here. Even matchups last year in which he completely imploded on the mound, he stood up there, faced it, said, yeah, I don't know what went wrong. I thought I had it tonight. It's really frustrating. I'm getting hit around. I'm trying my best, and I don't know what to do differently there. It sucks. It's a huge loss from this Phillies team, but I also give Walker a huge amount of credit for basically battling through it in a way that we do not always see athletes do. And even in that playoff run, or I wouldn't even call it a playoff run based on how things transpired in the postseason for the Phillies, but in the postseason, without him having a roster spot, he was still there on the top of the bench, cheering on his guys, being a huge part of the team, and I can tip my hat to that in a respect. So I'll be rooting for Taijuan Walker. This isn't something that I'm going to overly expect to be the case, and I don't think the Phillies would have made the trade for Jesus Luzardo if they expected that to be the case, but still, you would rather hear those things than not, and I do think that there's going to be a clear effort from this Phillies team to rebuild Taijuan Walker's stock, status, outlook, however you want to phrase it. Really, mentality is more of what I mean by that, is that I think they're going to intentionally try and get in here, pump him up with confidence, believe he can do it again, and sometimes that does matter to a player. It is hard. Sometimes the mental returns are more difficult than the physical returns from injury and things like that, and we will see what officially he's dealing with right now. But nice, good signs across the board for this Phillies team. I'm itching for actual baseball to take place on the diamond, but excited that it is right here. So let me know what you guys think on each of these topics here, that Zack Wheeler will be starting opening day, that Taijuan Walker could potentially be sneaking his back way into the picture for this Phillies team, and anything else that you got on your mind in the comments. As always, appreciate you guys tuning into this video. And before you drop off, make sure you are smashing that subscribe button here. We're going to keep you we're going to be on top of things from start to finish this season for this Phillies organization. And 76.2% of you guys have not subscribed that are watching these videos just yet. So we want as many of you as possible along for the ride. Make sure you're smashing that button if you have not just yet. Drop a like on this video here, and I'll be back talking with you next time right here on Phillies Digest. Peace.